What's a no-shit moment where you realized you've been doing something the wrong way for years? I taught myself how to play clarinet. 6 months later someone told me that I'd been playing with the mouthpiece upside down. Maybe you just had your mouth upside down. My family always had a cup next to the bathroom sink in case you needed to rinse your mouth after brushing your teeth or maybe get a quick drink of water in the middle of the night. My grandma had the same cup at her house. I used it for years whenever I was thirsty. One day she saw me doing this and said, "Don't use that cup. That's where grandma puts her teeth." Work. I owned a light blue colored microwave for about 3 years that a family member gave me for a housewarming gift. Thought it was cool. Never saw a blue microwave before. One night, a buddy asked why I never took the blue plastic wrap off my microwave, then proceeded to peel it off for me. Damn. That bitch is silver. Still miss my blue microwave sometimes though. Travel frequently for work and only just noticed that most laptop bags have a strap to place over a rolling suitcase handle. When I was a kid, I was told that the paper that came on cupcakes muffins was edible. I would spend a decade eating them like this, paper and all, until a friend pointed it out. Found out I was lighting incense wrong. Boyfriend and I got a bunch to add to our collection of nice smells and we would light them and they would just start a little inferno. Convinced we were buying cheap, garbage incense we stopped using them. I proceed to buy a different brand in a hope those would work. I test light and same thing, it just goes up in an inferno. Roommate informs us you are supposed to blow them out once they catch. Oops. I used to pull my pants down all the way at the urinal. Cork guns. Everyone says that you're supposed to pull it towards you, but I saw a Reddit comment saying that they are designed to be pushed away instead. My boss looks at me funny for doing it, but it's exponentially cleaner and tighter. I used to fill the kettle by the spout. My parents have always done it this way. I thought the center part was mainly for decoration, but not functional. I don't know why I never questioned this. One day I bought a new tea kettle and my husband was like, "WTF, what is inside this?" and with great ease, opened the center to pull out a manual with instructions and whatnot. I was drinking dirty paper water for like 2 weeks. For years I would struggle to take the cap off new deodorant, the one under the lid. It always is so stuck down onto the deodorant stick. I had an aha moment a year or so ago that I could simply crank the deodorant stick up until the cap could easily be removed. I'm 34. It took me until age 34 to realize this. My mom refused to show me how to use a tampon because she thought I should stick to pads because they were safer. This was back when googling how to do things wasn't an option, and I was the first in my friend group to get my period and a little sheepish about it. So basically I was shoving that sucker up there with the entire applicator for like 2 years, wondering why tampons didn't seem to work that well for me. It wasn't until I was in high school, and one of my friends went on a crusade against plastic waste and started advocating for tampons with no applicators that all of a sudden I realized I had massively fucked up. I have a flashlight that I've had for near a decade. I originally got it because it really looks like a lightsaber, and it was cheap. Plus you could twist the lens around to focus it, or so I thought. When I got it home and put batteries in it, I found out that twisting the top didn't change the focus. I assumed the top being able to twist was just a result of it being cheap. Fast forward to a month or so ago, a storm picked up during the night so I went out to check nothing was going to blow away. As I was trying to open the gate, the flashlight slipped, and I caught it by the top part that twists, but the rest of the flashlight slid about 2 inches down from the twisty part, and it turns out if you pull the top part up, it turns it into a lantern type thing for lighting up an area. It's nothing big, but there have been times where it would have been incredibly useful to be able to put the torch down and light up a wide area. One day I used the key fob to remotely start my dad's car. It was a no shit moment for him. 2 years and he didn't realize he had this handy little function. Sometimes I assume I know the lyrics to songs I have heard on the radio for a long time. I always sang Toto's Africa as I miss the rains down in Africa, until someone made fun of me and told me it's I bless the rains down in Africa. I argued, that makes no sense. Why would someone bless rain? It's a song about longing to return to Africa, which is why they miss the rain. Then I went home and looked up the lyrics. Not cause I've been doing something wrong my entire life, but saw it wrong. I'm colorblind and my entire life I thought peanut butter was green until I turned 19. And when I found out it was brown my mind was blown. It took so long because no one really talks about the color of things like that. So I had always assumed that gas stations had pipes that led to a nearby oil plant or something. I live in Houston, so during Hurricane Harvey in 2017 there was so much news about the gas stations being empty because they weren't being filled. I was in the car with my sisters and we were talking about it, and I mentioned I don't understand how the gas supply was limited when the pipes are underground and not affected by the flooding. They both looked at me with the most confused faces ever, and one of them said, "You do know that trucks come to fill up gas stations, right?" And I was completely shook by this and had no idea, and they asked me, "So when you see the big trucks at little gas stations in the city with the tubes in the ground, what do you think they were doing?" And I replied, "Filling up their gas." Not something I did wrong, but definitely something I thought wrong for 17 years. That you do, in fact, need to disassemble your laundry dryer and clean the lint out from underneath the drum once per year. I'm 31 and never knew this. No one ever said anything. Never saw anyone do this. Crappiest thing is that my parents also learned this the hard way and never bothered to give me a tip when I bought my first dryer. Luckily, the wife and I discovered the lint buildup when changing the rollers. I said to my parents, "Wow, it really builds up in there," and they were like, "Oh yeah, you need to do that like once a year." What? My wife and I have this ceiling fan light in our bedroom in the house we moved into 2 years ago. It has a remote control for the fan and lights. About a year and a half ago the lights suddenly stopped working. The fan works well and we didn't have a ton of money, so we've just lived with lamps in the room, always being frustrated with how damn dark it is. I was scrolling some other thread on AskReddit a few weeks ago and the top post was a guy talking about how his lights stopped working years ago, and then he found out that it was just dimmed, which you do by holding down the button on the remote. It sounded so much like our fan I went and tried it. Dimmed. Not mine, but my dad has been spelling his name wrong his whole life. He's 51. His name is Jeffrey, and he's been spelling it like that since he learned how to spell his name. A few months ago my mom pulled out his birth certificate, and we all learned it's actually spelled Jeffrey. Not sure if he spells it correctly now, but it was definitely an oh shit moment for him. I accidentally logged my tips incorrectly for the first month or so of working at a restaurant. I'm not quite sure how I was doing it, but I ended up not getting taxed on a couple $100 because I never logged them as income. Edit, this was only on cash tips, and I have now been made aware that I didn't need to log cash tips in the first place. So I did nothing wrong. Tying my shoes. If you need to tie your shoes more than once after putting them on, you're doing it wrong. Then a friend of mine taught me. The two knots are supposed to work against each other. It took me weeks to undo decades of muscle memory. But at the end of the day, now I only have to tie once in the morning. And that's it. If you want to see if yours are done wrong, the bow will be at an angle. If tied correct, the bow will be perpendicular to your foot. Plus, there's the whole I better tie my shoes 5 times a day because the knot is working itself loose. It has been liberating. Wish I learned it as a kid. Not me, but this happened at a dinner party I was at a few years ago. Everyone at the table was in their mid to late 20s. For whatever reason, we were talking about a very similar topic, embarrassing stuff that you didn't realize until you were an unreasonably old age. One guy brought up how he grew up with 4 sisters, and since he was a little kid they always told him that he had to leave the toilet seat down. Being a little kid, he assumed girls cared so much about the toilet seat being down because toilet seats were for girls. So he stopped using toilet seats, and would sit on the rim of the toilet every time he had to take a dump. He didn't realize until he was about 10 that toilet seats were for everyone to use. We all had a good laugh about this. Except for one guy, who was dead quiet and whose face had gone red as a beet. No one had ever brought this up to him before and he, too, had thought toilet seats were for girls. At 27. Playing an N64. Now, it wasn't years, only about 1. I got an N64 for Christmas the year they came out with Super Mario 64. Unfortunately, my family had splurged to get me the game and the video game system, so I didn't get a new game until my birthday nearly a year later, October birthday, for your information. Until that time, I played the N64 by gripping the outer prongs of the controller. It wasn't until I saw a diagram of recommended playstyles in the instruction booklet for Star Wars: Shadows of the Empire that I realized it was much easier to put my left hand on the center prong.